Hey everyone, Sharkherd here, and in this video I want to go over my 2.6 Spiral Abyss run. This was a bit of a unique Abyss because I 36'd the entire thing in one shot. Now normally floors 9 through 11 are no big deal, but typically on floor 12 I'll do one floor, exit the Abyss, and then make a specific team to counter the next floor. But that wasn't the case here. You see, I recently built this new freeze team knowing that it would be incredibly effective, although a little more risky since I was trading my dedicated healer and shielder for more damage. But I thought, why not give it a shot? After all, frozen enemies can't hurt you, right? So I decided to do this little experiment. The entire Abyss, one attempt. No leaving, no team swapping. How many stars could I get? Because floors 9 through 11 aren't really much of a challenge anymore, I decided not to post those and only focus on floor 12. But if you would like to see floors 9 through 11, let me know in the comments below. I'll also put my team builds at the end of the video. That way you can see their overall stats, including what weapons and artifacts they're using, their talent levels, and their constellations. I looked at the overall layout of the Abyss and decided that Raiden National would be great on the first half, and my newly improved freeze team would work on the second half. But to be honest, I really just wanted a freeze team on the second half because I really didn't want to deal with those Abyss Lectors and Heralds. And seeing as how they can be frozen and sucked in by Venti's tornado when frozen, I thought this was a good chance to test out just how powerful this team can be on enemies who can be CC'd. Now I also want to say that I did make a lot of mistakes while doing this run. It is far from perfect and there are some parts that look pretty rough. But even though it wasn't the cleanest run, it just goes to show that you don't need to play perfectly to 36-star the Abyss. It's more important to understand how your team functions, and if necessary, take some extra time to set up for the next floor. That's why sometimes you'll see me take extra time on a floor so I can make sure that I have more energy going into the next round. But you'll also see me ignore some mechanics entirely and die because of it. There's a pyro buffing mechanism that gives them a pyro aura that you have to dispel using another element. If you don't, they take much less damage and become much tankier. Honestly, the Raiden team wasn't ideal here, but they definitely did well enough to clear the floor with plenty of time for the second half. And if you're going to use a team like this, know that it will take you a lot of time since most of the damage of this team is coming from pyro. But because the second half of floor 12-1 only has 2 ruin guards, it's pretty easy to get those down within just a few seconds. Of course, the freeze team I used in the second half of this floor would do amazingly here, but I decided it was more important for them to be on the other side, particularly to deal with the 3 Pyro Heralds and Lectors. So now I get to test my new team in action. It's basically the same as my old freeze team, but I swapped out Diona for Rosaria. This makes the team more offensive as Rosaria deals a lot more damage than Diona does, but I don't have any shielder or healer. So instead, I put a prototype Amber on Mona. What is a prototype Amber, you might ask? It is a craftable 4-star weapon. It's not known for being particularly good, but it will heal your team and restore energy after a character who's holding it uses their elemental burst. And since that's basically Mona's only job in this team, she becomes our sort of pseudo healer and energy battery. I remember when I was playing this floor, I kind of took it a little bit casually. As you can see, I had about 1 second to spare, and I was just shooting the ruin guards in their little eyeballs with Ganyu. Again, I wasn't super stressed for time, I figured I could make it, but I just wanted to see what I could do if I didn't swap teams. But I have to say, for using this new team in Abyss, it felt really good. Next is floor 12, chamber 2, first half. Here we got an elemental skill damage bonus card, which I thought was the best one of all of the other options. I usually like to go for bonus cards that work on the entire floor, rather than ones that just work on the specific chamber. This way you get bonuses that stack as you progress, rather than ones that only work on that chamber and then disappear right afterwards. This floor has a bunch of Whopper Flowers, and they're pretty annoying, especially because when you hit them, they get knocked back really far. They also love to disappear underground and then reappear at the complete opposite end of the arena. So again, another floor that would have been great for CC, but I wanted my freeze team with Venti on the other side. So instead, I just made do with the Raiden team and destroyed them pretty hard. At the very end, when I wasn't chasing them down, I decided that I would just stay and use a few more elemental skills so I could get back my energy for chamber 3. So I continue walloping these Whopper Flowers, and before I know it, it's the next chamber. I don't have much else to say about this chamber, so I'll let this clip play out while I talk about my thoughts on the next chamber. Next we're on to Floor 2, Chamber 2, the second half. This is the section I was most worried about because of the Pyro, Hydro, and Electro, Abyss Heralds, and Lectors combined. However, I knew they could be CC'd with Venti and Frozen, so I decided to take them all out at once in grand icicle fashion. This could have actually been extremely dangerous and I could have died multiple times over, but luckily they were frozen so they couldn't really hit me. And to be completely honest, I finished this side a lot faster than I thought I would. I even felt I had a lot of time to spare at the end, as by the time I was done doing all my standard rotations, the only one left alive was the Hydro Abyss Herald, and a couple charge shots from Ganyu did him in nice and easy. And another 3 stars on this chamber, with a lot more time to spare than the first section. If you like this video and my explanation, make sure to place your fins on that like and sub button. Doing so means a lot to me, and it will help me get my channel a lot larger so it can become a nice great white shark instead of a tiny little guppy. Thanks so much for taking the time to click those buttons, it means a lot to me. Now we move on to Floor 12, Chamber 3. We've got 2 elemental annoying shieldy boys to deal with on each side here, and considering how long it took me to deal with the Pyro Enchanted or Pyro Buffed Kairagi, Nobushi, and Treasure Hoarders on the first half, I wasn't sure the Raiden team was really up to the task of taking down this floor very quickly. After all, most of their damage comes from Pyro. However, I was forgetting about my boy Xingqiu, and man, he really came through. Especially because I ignored a bunch of mechanics and a bunch of characters kind of started to disappear on me. I chose to get the elemental burst damage bonus card as both of these teams focus very heavily on their elemental burst damage. When I first start this floor, I run immediately to the left because these guys will not group up, so I need them to be somewhat close to each other so I can hit them both at the same time. This goes somewhat to plan, although they do get knocked back away from each other. Usually, when their shields are up, they can't be knocked back anymore. However, there is a mechanic where they can be knocked back once you defeat their little flower or little bud that they place down on the ground. They kind of automatically get knocked back at that point. But they were relatively close, and I still sort of end up taking them out one by one. And to be completely honest, when I play this team, I'm kind of spoiled because there's so much healing, so much damage mitigation, so much resistance and interruption to knockback that I don't really care what damage is going on. Even when fighting in the Abyss with Corrosion, I would still pop everything, do my burst, do my rotation, and generally I was completely fine. Though here I completely ignore the Smoldering Flames, which is like Corrosion, but it keeps sapping your HP over time. And wouldn't you know that both of these guys create the Smoldering Flames effect. And since I'm not paying any attention to that, my characters lose a lot of HP. And because I wasn't paying attention, Bennett dies, and then Raiden dies. But I still clear the floor with plenty of time. It was pretty ugly, but we did it with plenty of time to spare for the next floor. Now on to 12-3-3, the last chamber for all the marbles. I've been able to one-shot every floor before and getting 3 stars on each, but this will determine if I can complete the challenge or not. I take a moment to think about this and how I'm going to do my rotations, since I don't have full energy on this team, but I should have enough to at least get it started. I'm also trying to think about the positioning of the Abyss Heralds, because these Hydro Boys love to spin around and Beyblade all over the entire arena. After a little bit of thought, I just decide that I'm just going to start. And so, the Ice Vortex begins. We start with our standard Ganyu, Venti, then Mona. This creates a Cryo Cyclone, and then Mona can place her Omen debuff on the enemies, and while they're frozen, the Omen is extended, giving us additional time for bonus damage. Then Rosaria comes in to add even more cryo damage to the mix, and get us some more energy for Ganyu and herself. At this point, the Abyss Heralds are about to enter their shield phase, and they're going to become exceedingly annoying. And I'm doing my best to time my elemental bursts so that I can use them while these guys are transforming and not have to run out of the way. In other words, I'm using the invincibility frames afforded by the elemental burst animation to negate any damage that would be coming from when they explode and get their shields up. Now at this stage, getting energy can be a real pain, so I know my rotation is going to be pretty off and pretty strange. So now my priority is not going in the standard rotation, but just to keep these guys frozen and hopefully together so I can deal damage to both of them at the same time. I'm just using whatever burst is up at whatever time, trying to get them somewhat aligned even if they aren't perfect, and it ends up working out in the end. I see that I have a few seconds left and just need to do a little bit of cryo damage, and wouldn't you know it, our new member Rosaria takes us home, gets the final kill, and that allows us to complete the challenge with a full 36 stars, single attempt. Very nice. This final section of the video showcases my character builds. You might notice that there are a few unique builds including Thundering Fury Bennett, and some unique choices of weapons and stat allocation. This is just a very specifically tuned team. Specifically, Zhongling, Xingqiu, and Bennett are designed to work with Raiden, and that's why they have the stats and artifact sets they do. And as I said before, Mona has the prototype Amber because the team I was running did not have a healer, so that role fell to her. These are not builds that you should go for necessarily, but just realize that Genshin has a lot of flexibility, and so depending on how you use characters, you can have them with different artifact sets and weapons to fulfill certain roles. But everyone wants to see the builds in these videos, so I decided to include them. So I'll let the video play out, and enjoy the rest. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you soon.